Hello, welcome back. Right, this is a quick blog, probably not going to be more than 10 minutes long, which you're probably happy about. I'm just going to show you a few things that I'm working on in the workshop. This is a Gerry Anderson replica from Fire at Rig 15 with the SPV, because I've just finished an SPV and this is going to be the partner model to go with it. So I've got like a screenshot from one of the episodes. So that should be quite cool. I'll show you about that later in a different video. This X-Wing is pretty close to completion now. The paint job's looking really nice. It's taken me a long while because I'm doing this in a slightly different way than I do normal Star Wars models. A lot more detailed, a lot less messy, a little bit more real world, but you know, it's like a hybrid type paint job. There'll be a separate video, quite an in-depth video on what I've done to this coming soon. But at the moment, what I'm working on is this electronics setup for the pulse rifle. We want this thing to be loud. It's got to be loud. You know, the old pulse rifle setup that you used to get came with a small speaker. They're tinny and they're a bit, you know what I mean? So we're going for a full 20 watts of power on this with a separate amp and everything else. So it's getting quite complicated, the electronic setup for this, but it is going to be the absolute nuts if I manage to pull it off. So I've had a fella working on the electronics for me, Andy from scalectronics.com. You should go and check it out. If you want lighting that's really simple for your models, you should go and have a look at his website. That this system is going to be controllable through an app on your phone with an image of the rifle and all the different settings that you can have for each one of the bulbs on it. So it's going to be a pretty complex setup. Andy is actually writing code and an interface for this particular gun. So it's quite an in-depth, complex build from both sides of the equation. What I've got to do is fit these components inside the armature for the model. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. The assembly situation is that this whole thing has to go together by virtue of nuts and bolts, because everything needs to be strippable. We'll see what occurs. I've got to come up with a system that'll do the job and make it strong and robust, and you don't want the thing creaking and making noises when you pick it up. It's got to feel like a proper unit, you know. So I've been working on the counter. This is the counter area. Yes, they're at a slight angle, I think, as they are in the movie. We've got the LED strip positioned on the rear side of that so that we can do the countdown from 7 to 1 and then get the flash and the dwell and all the rest of it. We've got the hole for the on-off switch, which is going to be a latching push-button switch. That's all looking pretty good. Just got to work out the methodology of the build. I'm probably going to use these screw holes, as they are visible on the opposite side, as part of the actual fixation of the two halves of the gun together, so that will make a nice solid connection. So this unit has to be capable of being compressed without putting any pressure on the material, so everything has to be nicely designed there, so when you tighten them up it doesn't flex. That's something I need to work on. Trigger mechanism, that's okay, blah blah blah. If I flip it over, I'll show you. I build these in layers for the first one to make the prototype, and then we're going to take casting from that, just because it allows me to stack up detailing internally to give all the shelving and all the various different reliefs that you need for, you know, triggers, trigger springs, mechanisms, safety switches, etc. It's quite a complex build, this. It's not like an average, you know, 3D printed skin where you get the details, but inside there's absolutely nothing. There's more design time on the internals of this thing than there is on the outside, so it pushes it into a slightly different group of replicas, you know. I'm trying to make this thing all singing, all dancing. So we've been working on getting the correct components that fit into this thing while supplying us with enough power, because the original pulse rifle has a wee little jobby like this, which doesn't sound like it's a convincing weapon. It's just like a tinny little thing. So we've got in here now this part at the bottom here. This is a board which has a 20 watt amplifier system on it. That's going to be wired up to these two, maybe one, we're not sure yet, speakers that are going to sit inside the barrel and obviously the sound is going to be coming through the grill, which fits in here, and all these holes, which are actually real holes. They're not blind holes. They're going to be, they're going to be capable of allowing sound through. So I'm waiting for these to arrive in the next few days. Then I can get an accurate measurement on them and then build the structure that holds the speakers inside the front there. Okay. We've also got here, this is a sound module, and this is the controller for the Wi-Fi, which will speak to your phone to allow you to control the gun. This large unit on the back here is the battery, which you can see if let's delete that. So there we go. Componentry at the moment is stacked inside in this kind of order. We shouldn't have any temperature problems because the amp is cold, but I've put that in a position where there's free space around it, so it can actually cool itself a little bit if necessary. There's no heat generated with these, and the battery I don't think is going to get hot unless there's a ridiculous amount of draw from this 20-watt system from the thing, but I don't think there will be. So the detailing has been changed a lot. So we've got the three slots on the front. We've got all the right slots here. We've got our nicely cast grip, which we've already got. There has to be an LED system that fits in here, and there is also going to be a muzzle flash that fits in here. Lighting is a really weird one because when I've checked out the video and freeze framed it, there's a muzzle flash that comes through the grill on the top section, out through the top, and there's also a flash that comes through the front end of these holes here, which means there's lighting at the top and there's also lighting at the bottom there. So these are two strips of LEDs that are going to be configurable for colour. In the film it looks like they're slightly cool, sort of bluey yellow, sort of greeny bluey yellow. It's a very strange colour. And then internally inside the barrel is another muzzle flash that we're putting in, which will be like a red, warm orange red. So that's got the holder for that LED system that fits inside the barrel has to be designed, and also the torch. We're going to have a nice bright torch with a lens system and a holder for the end of that. That's still got to be designed. So you can see it's a bit of a whopping project, this. At the moment I'm working on the blanking plate for the to separate the LEDs on the counter at the top here. So that's the update on the pulse rifle. It's still definitely on the go. So this is what we've got so far. Still a long way to go, but bear with us guys, this thing's going to be nuts when it comes. So, you know, keep pinned to the channel if you want to see how this progresses, but it's quite an undertaking to get this one right. I don't want it to feel second rate and I don't want it to feel cheap. So there you go. Cheers. Thanks for checking it out. Subscribe if you haven't. Pop a little like on there. Yeah, we're getting there. Cheers.